Mhm.
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is TARIQ MOHAMMADI, and today we have with as Dr. Nelson. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It'll be an interesting conversation, I'm sure.
Yes, I was just thinking to pick the subject up and have a more light in it and get some wisdom and listen to a person who has this information or like wisdom and carrying it with itself and and share it with our PSA colleagues and members, and because most of them are young students in the university.
Yes.
So it is a good question to start with that. Now it has been like 2, 3, 4 days that the universities are open again for the girls in Afghanistan. It's a good to start with the what field of studying, what field of education is good for them for the next 5, 10, 15 years. As we know that you are a futurist. So like in the like future time, 5 to 10 years, what field they should just start to studying and build themselves as a career in it?
Well, let me start by saying I'm kind of biased. I'm an engineer by training, so I tend to focus on STEM fields. But what they need to be looking out on the future is what is going to be needed by humanity and where are the jobs. And in every sector that there is, we're going to have jobs. You see a lot of posts about the future of work, what is happening to humanity. But unfortunately, most of the articles about the future of work are based on life in modern cities like a New York or London. And we're not seeing enough, let's say, research that is based on what's happening in developing countries or countries in transition. And from a small island of Jamaica, we are in the US hemisphere shadow. So on our economy, most is tourism. But when we talk about jobs in tourism, we have to look at what tourism is going to be like in the future. Will we have tourism? Because will we have beaches? I don't know. So we have to look and say, we will always need food, for example.
Yes.
So there has to be some careers in food science, the industry of creating food. We'll always have computers, for example. So we're definitely going to have a bastillion of careers in the IT field, from cybersecurity to programming to whatever. So look at the things that we must have. We must have healthcare. So we're going to always need people who are doing nursing, etc. But beyond those careers which are obvious, we need people in the support system. So for example, I'm not sure what's happening in Afghanistan now, but in Jamaica, our healthcare system, we have great doctors and nurses, but our engineering systems in healthcare are terrible, right? The machines never work, right? Nobody fixes the lab. So I'm like, why is there no program to train biomedical engineers and the lab technicians and the lab machinists and lab technology people? Because people go to the hospital and then, oh, the x-ray machine isn't working. Well, so you have to, I think schools and universities need to look out at the future, see what the country needs, and begin to do that work and research on, okay, if we want Afghanistan to look like this, then what are some of the jobs we have to have? How do we begin to train people for that future, for the Afghanistan that you prefer?
Yes, you just mentioned so good that we can hire the education or improve the standard level of the nurses and the doctors and teach them good the new way of using the machines that they are coming and developing with the ITs and everything. The IT is very interesting sectors that Afghan girls can go in it and work in it. We have a robotic teams in Herat that they are very good. They are top in Afghanistan, and all of them are girls and they are young girls in the university girls. So it is a very light a light future, I think. And if it is the situation is stable and we have peace and security, they can study and focus to build themselves. I have a question, which area of their leadership or like their self-development they should work on them to have more courage to come to the society, or like to have more courage to stand alongside of all the challenges?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm thinking about my own childhood, right? I grew up in Jamaica. I live in America now, but I spent all my high school years in Jamaica. And I always tell people, I was pretty well formed by the time I got to America. I was very well formed. I went to all girls high school, and I was blessed to have a principal who told us every day, especially those of us who were good at mathematics, that we were expected to be the leaders of this new Jamaica, the Jamaica we wanted to create. And so at the time in Jamaica, we had just become independent, like maybe 10 years before, right? Because this is 1970 something. We got independence in 1962. So we were still very optimistic, you know, of who we're going to become. We thought we had more control over our destiny as a nation. You know, so all these things kind of colored our perspective. So I think myself, also because I grew up in a household where my mother was very much a leader. She was a Girl Scout leader. She was an elder in the church, and she was a leader in the school. She was a teacher in an elementary school, but she was a senior teacher, and then she became the principal. So I grew up in a household where courage was expected. And I say that because it's important I tell your listeners that as a child, I stuttered very badly, right? So I was not fluent speaker at all. And in fact, I did not become a fluent speaker till when I was over 40 years old, right? However, people didn't understand how is it, even though I stuttered, I had so much of an opinion on everything. So normally people who stutter are very quiet, they don't have anything to say, etc. But me, if you made me mad, all of a sudden I would almost stop stuttering because I would be so upset about the injustice that I would become fluent in my anger. So I think courage is something. I'm not sure you can make courage, but I think you can grow your courage, right? I think we have a kernel of it deep in our bellies. And what I did for myself when I decided as an adult at 40 that I had a choice to make about who I was going to become in the face of some challenges at my job that I was facing, I decided to look at the example of my heroes and my shearers and said, well, if they could do this, then I can do this. And so in Jamaica, we have a national hero that fought against slavery. So I said, if she could do that, then I could do this. In the American context, I looked at Harriet Tubman, who was well known for the Underground Railroad. And I thought about, oh my God, she escaped and then she went back to save people 17 times. This is nothing. I'm living in a comfortable house. She went in the bushes with snakes and guns and dogs hunting her. And she did this and she survived. And that's why she's a hero today or shearer today. And so for me personally, when I was going through my own personal, what we call in the Christian parlance, the dark night of soul, when you're struggling with yourself to become who God wants you to be, or who well, for me, I was like, okay, God is calling me to do this, but I'm afraid. Do I go or not? And so I feel like for me, my prayer work and the example of my shearers took me to this place where I felt comfortable in stepping forward. I still got beat up a lot. Don't get me wrong, I got beat up a lot. But I took it as a spiritual exercise.
Yes,
a spiritual exercise.
Yes, we have this also, like so many religions, Buddhism also, like and Islam. Like I just see this is so much and like a common between all religions that when you just suffer, just take it as a spiritual exercise that you can higher your value.
Exactly. And I became very deeply rooted in interfaith practice. So like currently I'm an interfaith minister, right? So that means that even though I would say I'm born a Christian, my philosophy is that everybody, every path, you're born into a path because there's something that is there for your soul to experience. And
And
so as an interfaith practitioner, I believe that each religion has truths. And the truth of that religion, the kernel of that religion begins with do unto others
yes,
as you would have them do unto you. Every religion has that. Every faith has a
everyone,
version of that.
everyone, so simple, be good, be happy, like even and even in this, I'm just starting to saying Swedish word, like even in Islam, we have it like the woman value is very high. Like if we see the text, the content, like even Prophet Muhammad said, like the woman is a flower, is like inside your apartment, like you should be worshiping your mother. And like mother is another level, like even if you want to compare to a wife or a sister, like mother is another level. And I see this one that in the societies of Islam, like between the home, they are really, really appreciating old women, old mothers, and they are always taking care of them. And my mother is having a leadership style. Like she is walking like a general. She was starting like in the school principal, like a teacher of a university, and now she's retired. She's at home, but she is like working like as a leader now in our oxygen production in Afghanistan and in all our companies. My question is that what you think the consequences of social and economical impact will be in the consequences? What will be if we remove or abandon like the girls or women from the society?
Well, here is the challenge that we're facing, right? And my book, Smart Futures for a Flourishing World, talks about this, that we're living in a construct of a world that came out of the colonial experiment, right? So the way the world has evolved because European countries went abroad, sailed around the world, and left their ideas of what the world should look like. So our economy, for example, is bedded in a Judeo-Christian construct of um, growth must look a certain way, development must look a certain way, finance must look a certain way. So if you look at the Islamic banking system, for example, versus Western banking system is very different. So the question now that we are in this space, I call this point of the COVID pandemic in this global arena, we're in a period of a holy transition. We have choices to make as a human family as to what we want. We cannot go back, right? But do we go forward to the future that is currently prescribed, either in the Western side by one way or in the Islamic side by another, totally different point? Or can we find a third ground? And I believe that we at this point need to find a third ground, because either way, either or is going to be very self-destructive.
Yes, both
If
of
we
them.
go,
Remove social
they're,
and
very,
economic. Yes.
they're both self-destructive. If we try to go back to what was, make America great again or whatever, which means Black people should know their place, for example,
Yes.
whatever that means, you're going to lose, America would lose so much knowledge, wisdom, intellectual capital by silencing the voice of women, silencing the voice of Black people, for example, in America, that this idea of making America great again so that white people can feel safe shows that we have work to do in kind of having people understand that we all share the future. We have to work together. And any attempt to go backwards to a past way of being where one people were in control of everything is really a backward step, and it doesn't really take you forward. No, the question is, do we necessarily want to go forward with a world where more, buy more, consume more, No, no, because that is also self-destructive. I think it's important we stop and calibrate. And one of my last sermon I did, I talked about having a new covenant with the earth. We cannot continue to just take things from the earth and waste things and waste materials and misuse nature, right? And then expect that the earth is going to say, okay, fine. Because guess what? We humans will be evaporated. Either we will self-destruct by war, right? Which we have come close to many times, or we'll self-destruct because we'll kill off all the animals, and therefore the life chain will become unbalanced because we'll have more bacteria, more virus that don't have anywhere to go. So they land to us, right? They have nowhere to go. They're gonna come to us, right? Or we're gonna have artificial intelligence go mad. There's so many ways in which we should self-destruct. So I think it's important that as women take on leadership, we do not necessarily follow the patterns of leadership that men have laid down.
I believe
we have to find a new way.
Yes, I really believe. I had an interview with a Netherlands journalist. He asked me why Sweden is some years, 5, 6, or 10 years ahead of our country, like Netherlands, to take a good decision. And I directly answered because I see in the board members more women. In Sweden, we have like when I work in hospitals or like in any municipality or even Uppsala University, we have so many women that they were in the board members or they were head of departments and leading the maybe small hospitals or even like a big education for a municipality. So I see there is a big difference even from my mother's side and my dad's side, the leadership of a man and woman, and you mentioned it too. Like if I want to ask you this one, how we have our own leadership style and do not mix it with another like gender?
I think that women today, as opposed to say 20 years ago at the beginning era when it was really 1 out of, let's say, 1 million women in the room. Now we're like 1 out of 100,000, right? The numbers are going up. We're still the first or the only, but still we have more women who can talk to each other. So you have women in parliament, women who are presidents and prime ministers. You have women now in corporate, right? So there we now have the opportunity for there to be looking at Sustainable Development Goal 17, for example, on partnerships, for new kind of partnerships to be constructed between civil society, media and entertainment, business sector, the producers, the IT companies, the search engine companies, etc., and the politicians to really sit back and say, okay, there is something we're supposed to learn from this COVID experience, right? What is it? How do we deal with climate change? And I think that women have to lean in to their nurturing side to look at new metrics. So in the SMART philosophy, which I have, the M in SMART stands for moral metrics, meaningful metrics, right? And if we were to change some of these metrics, so for example, it's always about growth, it's about profits, right? And we're not looking at the cost to societies. So it is not that we want women to all go out and work and then nobody's home to take care of the child, but we want those women who have the capacity to go out and work, who have the passion to go out and be an engineer, to feel comfortable doing that, knowing that their childcare is a properly trained person who is nurturing, who is loving, because not every woman has that skill set. Some women are not nurturing.
Yes.
They're better with their children when the children are older. Some women can't handle babies because they don't know what to say. So everybody's different. And I think that the time has come for men and women to look at what is best in each other and learn from each other. That's what I'd like to see. I don't think there's women over here and men over here. I think we need to come together, and the best marriages do that in the home. They balance the strength of the wife with the strength of the husband. And I think in politics, in society, we have to balance the best of women's leadership with the best of men's leadership, so that we can create the best outcome for our families and our nations.
So good. Yes, so good. Thank you for that point. As you said that we should go back and be in our nature and be ourselves and lead as we are a man or a female. And some people, like, well, I'm not so much agree with them, but they're saying like that the women are more having more feelings and then logic. How you feel that this balance and the woman that they are putting this comment, which I'm not like totally agree, but you can put some light in the balancing between logic and the feelings for women.
Okay. Well, I have to say that it depends. Like for me, I went on all girls high school, as I said, and I think I have a balance between logic and feelings, right? So I'm gonna confess, right? I'm a crier. I cry very easily.
Yes, I understand. Yes,
I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm sad. I cry when I'm angry. So, in my experience, when I was trying to, become a leader in my institution, which was against what the institution wanted, basically, right? I would always be in trouble with somebody, right? And usually I'd get so angry that I would cry. But I think they thought that I was weak. I felt they saw my tears as weakness. But I had to let go of my emotion, and I didn't have, quote unquote, as I said, enough self-control to not cry in the meeting. I would cry in the meeting. That's just not done. Professional? What? However, I recognized that because I was crying in the meeting, they might have thought and assumed that I was weak. So I used my weakness as my strength. So I would go back and think, okay, so they said this, I got upset, I cried. So now they think I'm broken, right? Then I would plan my next move from another side, which they didn't foresee.
So smart. Yes, that's so smart. Yes.
So I think that I'm not advocating that other people should cry in meetings. Maybe now that I'm older, I wouldn't cry. But at the time here, I was young, I was on my own, I was teaching myself how to be a leader. I had no mentors. I was just, doing the best I could with a bad situation, right?
I understand, yes.
But now I think if I was to counsel a young woman, I would say, try not to cry, because it doesn't really make you look professional. Try and find another way of responding. You cannot, but you must own your own emotions, and you must allow your emotions flow. The thing is, how do you channel those emotions so the emotions don't take hold of you and run away with you? So it's like, like men who are violent, who beat their wives, for example, right? They're angry. They don't know how to control their emotional behavior. They don't know how to channel their emotions. There are women, for example, who provoke their husbands. I must tell you the truth, right? To speak the truth. And men then get angry. Some men walk away because they know, if I stay here one more time, I'm going to slap her upside her head. So they leave the house and walk it off. But women, on the other hand, have to also control their emotions. So that you have to understand that energies are such that if you get angry, usually the other person gets angry. And as a leader, our responsibility for those of us who want to lead is to recognize that we are escalating and return to logic by asking the question, okay, what can I do right now to lower the emotional response? And I think it's a learned behavior, right? Yes. Because once you lower your emotional response, your logical side of your brain normally kicks in.
I understand. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but it takes self-discipline, it takes work. It's not something that everybody is good at. I can say I have had to learn how to do that, because that's not my natural self. I had to teach myself how to take a breath and stop when I hear myself getting upset.
Yes, it's a very tricky to learn and have this skill and apply it on ourselves. And especially if there is a girl around like 15 to 20 or 30 years old, lost their father in the war. We have like thousands of them in Afghanistan, and they are dealing with such a psychological problem. We can't even name it because it is a very hard situation for a girl in that age. It is not
You
such
know,
a
I cannot begin to comprehend what it must be like to live, to be born and be living through a state of almost constant war.
yes
And
constant.
those of us who don't live it don't understand. The closest I would say I've come to it is my job, where I was under constant fire. So I was always feeling like if somebody called me, it was never to praise me. It was always like, why did you do this? Or it's always that. So so I think that for a country like yours that is coming out of a situation, it may be that the women in the country have to form, I don't know, small groups that come together and look back at their own, let's say, culture, and find gems of wisdom. In future thinking, right? We have a technique called causal led analysis, where we look at the mythologies of our deep cultural held beliefs to unpack what causes us to behave a certain way, right? And so we cannot impose on Afghanistan or Yemen or anywhere in Africa, for example, a Western version of the future. So that has to be decolonized. You have to strip that. You have to have, as women in Afghanistan, in Yemen, in Nigeria, who are dealing with these tensions between Christianity and Islam, for example, you have to have women come together and say, okay, this is our history, this is our culture. How do we look for the elements in our culture, in our religious beliefs that are the seeds on which we can grow our future to look like a future of our desire, and not assume that democracy or feminism or womanism should emerge in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Somalia, in Afghanistan, in Jamaica, in a way that it would emerge in the United States or Europe, because we're not those places, we're not those cultures.
Yes, I really believe that your comment and your feedback is essential for Afghanistan, that each group of a small group of women get together, maybe in the city, 50 or 100 getting together and talk with each other, find a certain common relation between their culture and religion. Thanks God, we don't have any religion problem in Afghanistan. So no religion fight against each other. That is because so many, as like everyone is educated, everyone knows that even Islam is like everyone is together, even Sunni and Shia. So they're in Afghanistan, they are living peacefully. They things that their problem is that maybe some culture issue or like some language or some regional issues that we have, that small women and can get together, small group of women can get together with this bigger impact. My question is that how much that impact can lead the generation if, for example, 100 university teacher women get together and start a group hopefully soon.
Let me tell you one thing, right? I believe that all change starts with a band of small people. I know this because of my own work as a change agent. The work I did in Washington, D.C. to change the conversation on how the Washington institutions would work with Black people in development, right? I was one of a few people who said, this is wrong, we have to change it. Yes, we got beat up in the process. I got beat up in the process. But today, the world is different because we stepped out and we find each other eventually, right? So I believe that if enough women come together and say, hey, you know, we want a better life for ourselves, we want a better life for our girls, we want our husbands to be who love us to recognize that these are their daughters. We don't want our brothers and our sons out doing things that we don't approve of. So we have to educate our sons and our daughters in ways. So let us find some common ground. We all want to be happy. What does that look like? What does well-being in Afghanistan look like? And I would invite people who are watching this to look at the example of the country of Wales, right? Wales developed something called a Futures Generation Council. And it took them time. But you can have in Afghanistan your own version of a Futures Generation Council, where you don't focus on the problems of right now. You say, you know what? It's an experience and we're meant to live through it. We're meant to grow through it. And we have to find joy even in the middle of this tragedy that we're living through. But what we want to do is that whatever breath we take, whatever extra time we have, we're going to come together as 15 women, as 50 women, as 150 women in this town to do this. Now, if you have 10 towns in the same province, you now have 1,500 women. Now you have a province, you have 1,500 women. Each of those women have influence over 10 to 100 people. So it might seem like a small band, but in my theory of change, my Smart Futures for Flourishing World change theory, I believe that each person can make a difference if they go forward, believing, first of all, words have power. And so for me, my practice is looking at my own faith, whatever their faith is, whatever text they're using, whatever sacred text is informing their passion for change. Look back at that text, find the right verse that is going to strengthen you, and then you speak to that and watch and see if the way is not made clear for you to move. You won't see the full, you won't see every step of the way. You just have to have the vision, and then you step out with what you can do now to achieve that vision. I believe that because this is what I've done and I've seen it work. But you must have a vision, and the vision must be shared by enough of you that even though you're working on different issues and different ideas, you still have a beautiful picture of the Afghanistan future you want, 2030. We have the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sure Afghanistan has signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals. So pick the goal that you want to work on.
Yes,
if it's energy,
so
right? Energy,
yes.
water, housing, education, and then look at it from a gender perspective.
Yes, of course. And for last question, I just, not maybe question, I just want you to feel free, and anything, any comments, any inspiration, speech, or anything you have. So you have like 1 minute, feel free to talk to Afghanistan woman, and after that, I say goodbye to you.
Well, I don't know. I've never been to Afghanistan, so I can only speculate. But I'm thinking about my country, Jamaica. I'm thinking about the countries in Africa I visited. I've never been to that part of the world. But I would say that for me, as a woman growing up in Jamaica, a small island, which so many people in the world know about, I am very grateful that I was born in Jamaica. I'm grateful that I was born at a time when my high school principal recognized that even though I stuttered very badly, that I was a leader. I was grateful that my mother also recognized that I was a leader and did not take the fact that I stuttered, that I was stupid, right? So I was given opportunities to express myself, to start things, Girl Scouts, church, at high school, and through college, I was active in student movement. So if you're a student, get active in a student group. Don't be, yes, feel the fear, but courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Today, I talk about being the first Jamaican on the moon. No, actually, I'm very afraid of flying. So every time I fly to a foreign country, I'm in like, but I still get on the plane because I don't want to make that be what stops me from doing what I think I'm called to do. So today I started the Caribbean Space Society. Are the Caribbean countries going to be in space? Maybe not. But as part of this humanity, and given that we're going to space as a human species, I believe that none of us must be left behind. So I'm saying to Afghan women, please look at the Sustainable Development Goals, find yourself in a goal, look at what it is that you're passionate about making happen, and step out in faith, facing your fear, knowing that you will be given the gifts and the tools inside of yourself if you have the courage to step out with faith, faith, faith.
Thank you so much. Thank you. In conclusion of your speech, I understood that everyone, we must be grateful and have a good faith and have a good hope for a great hope for a brighter future. Thank you so much for joining today's event. I really wish you a good life. See you up to the next event. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye.